Dan.
Had a college class with Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic.
Yeah. He actually wrote a blog post about it last year.
Is it possible to have that much awesome in the same room at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah, but neither one of them realised who the other one was, and so...
It was actually before... EGS was already... According to the blog post, EGS was already around, but this is before that guy with the glasses came about, so...
She's an evil enchantress, and she does evil dances. And if you look deep in her eyes, she will put you in trances. Then what will she do? She'll mix up an evil brew. Then she'll gobble you up in a big tasty stew. So, watch out.
Okay, welcome back to the Bunnycast, episode number 44. This is the second part. Just as a recap for those who may be joining us fresh off the farm, if you will. We have recordings once every 2 weeks, and we break the 2-hour recording session into handy and convenient bite-sized 1-hour segments. So this is the second hour. Joining us once again is, of course, myself, Dame Helen the LeatherClad. We have also with us Lord Sir Killerfish of the Keenfans. That's your title.
The Honourable Right Reverend.
Right Reverend Lord Sir Kill. Thank you. I had forgotten about that.
The Honourable Right Reverend and Mighty, whatever, Lord Killerfish, the Grand.
And, of course, you just
You know what, we could do a running joke. We could just add
Squato.
new descriptions to him every episode.
MDM, who was with us for the first half of this recording, has had to leave for reasons that he has not entertained to the rest of us. And just for those who may be joining us for this second half, the Bunnycast is the official podcast of the Bunny community. The Bunny community is the official fan community of Elguna Shive, and Elguna Shive and the Bunnycast are not related. Not even by blood.
Related in spirit. And that's all that matters.
Well, if you want this, then there are non-communicating cousins.
The Hatfields and the McCoys.
They only come together for when the wills are read and for the family functions happen, but they separate sides of the room, silently eyeing each other.
I'm watching you.
That's both creepy and disturbing.
2 for the price of 1. You got your creepy and my disturbing. You got your disturbing and my creepy.
My creepy.
But wait, there's more.
I
Okay.
had Reese's for breakfast.
And with a limited time offer, we'll give you an extra on top of your weird, creepy, and also some disturbing as well.
You sick people.
Right, moving on swiftly.
Good
Okay.
vote for justice.
Okay, we had back in what was the date on this? I can't find the date.
Well, you're saying that Killerfish reminded me. Dastrode has actually made a comeback onto the internets. She's getting back into her art. She's re-establishing herself. Basically, she hasn't actually been doing any of her drawing for about 3+ years because she was focused on her PhD. Yes, she actually now has her PhD in chemical engineering, I believe is the degree. So yes, we do have a bunny who is actually a professor.
PhD indicates she's a doctor, not a professor. A professor is a position of which you are teaching other people knowledge and is not actually dependent on.
She actually was teaching. No, she actually was teaching. She was teaching, but they couldn't actually afford to do it in the end, and she's at the moment not working. This is why she's also got back to art and doing her story because
she was a professor, but now she's a doctor.
Artists.
She was basically the reason why she let go was just because they said we can't afford to keep you as your teaching. So what we can do is if you want, we can pay you to stay with us. You just need to actually do another PhD course and it's with people that you don't like, where the entire design function is you need to get positive results always.
So, moving on to our discussion
interested
segment.
in doing art with her, she's interested. So.
We have, back in December of 2010, there was some unfortunate circumstances regarding the equipment used to do the actual recording of the Bunnycast.
Did it explode?
I may as well have. The Airport Extreme router, which I had been using and had been serving me faithfully and loyally for about 4 years, started having some severe problems. And at first I thought it was my computer because I was able to access the internet just fine on wired devices. So I thought, the wireless is dying in the router, in the computer, because it was literally the only thing that we used to connect to that router wirelessly with any consistent basis. My phone and my wife's phone, of course, connected wirelessly, but those weren't having problems at first. But when they finally started having problems, and then we couldn't even connect in wired and not have problems, I opened it up and I couldn't find anything wrong with it. Of course, well out of warranty, so I didn't have any problem opening it up. So I just figured it was dead. And I thought, and I know, here's me thinking again, I thought that we could get this cheapy router off of woot.com and everything would be fine. Unfortunately, the cheapy router that I bought on woot.com was so cheapy, it sucked badly. To the point...
instead of having the TSA problems with the last one, you got something that would work with Sony.
Basically...
Topical!
If I was on wireless, I would have to reset the wireless connection every 2 hours. I'm not kidding. Sometimes even every hour. On the wired connection, maybe...
Wow, it's actually possible that was worse than Sony stuff.
Yeah. Maybe once every day to 7 days I'd have to reset the connection. Just unplug and replug or restart the computer or something. And every so often I had to restart the entire network because it was just getting so bad.
See, what you got sent wasn't actually a router so much as it was a box with wires in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you do know that those weren't wires in there; those were just dust balls.
Oh right, okay. So it also had a little man in it with a radio who was acting as the wireless connection.
And every so often he falls asleep. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So you had to wake him up with a hammer.
No. That's what Sony has got now, not what they used to have before, which was the dead rat, which was basically powered by the decomposition of it. Yes, we're making fun of Sony.
Yes.
Who is it nowadays?
I was actually thinking of working for them for a little bit there.
Ooh, very lucky.
Yeah. I would have definitely been the butt of the jokes.
Now you just got the butt of jokes from April.
In any case, I did replace the Airport Extreme with a brand new Airport Extreme, and that's what we're operating on now, and it's working magnificently. Thank you very much.
Hooray!
So
is it extreme in the 90s type of extreme, or is it extreme in another type of extreme?
I've never figured that out. It just says extreme. And it's like
extreme. Yes, I've been watching Linkara episodes.
So, it has been at least since December since anybody's heard from me on the podcast. Squato, you had to duck out. I want to say 3 to 4 months before that because we had to change our schedule and you weren't able to meet up with us, and that was, of course, understandable. And then, of course, Killerfish, you ducked out a long time before that because you were trying to get some work.
Yeah.
How have we been doing since then? And Killerfish, since you've been away the longest, why don't you get us started?
I'm now working for myself. Drawing things.
As you should
working
have.
For myself. And if you hang around and look at my DeviantArt account, pretty soon I shall be putting up information on how you can get commissions from me, so I can draw stuff for you.
And the first one's going to come up is going to be porn.
Yes. This is probably what's going to happen, but
Heads
what
are
can you
actually
do about it?
Can you draw Grace as the unicorn from Robotic Unicorn, and have her with a can of Cool Whip with one of the ponies from My Little Pony, not the new one, the original one?
Well, maybe
there,
if you
there needs
say
to be. There needs to be some of what are the heck they're called, the eating art. The eating fetish.
What?
Don't.
Okay.
Yeah, he needs to actually work out what his rules are going to be for it.
Yes, that's what I'm going to be putting up on DeviantArt. And as for the ponies,
there will be a
perhaps
filtering.
if we use, say, lickety split for the pony, then I'm not admitting to knowing any of the My Little Ponies at all.
Board, that's it.
That name is actually enough. Well, name of My Little Pony, lickety split. Rule 34.
You know what's sad is that you were talking about that when I found out what the term I was looking for was vor. If you don't know what that is, don't search for it.
You're talking about...
That's the nicest way to put it.
V-O-R-E? V-O-R-E? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Vor.
Yeah.
V-O-R.
Because your V was getting a little fuzzed there in the connection. Yeah, don't look for it. Just don't.
We at the Bunnycast do not support people going online and looking for things that we tell them about whilst talking on the
If you look for it after we tell you not to, it's your
own damn fault.
Okay, let's put it this way. This is me telling you, don't look for it. And if you know me at all, if you know the dark recesses of my brain, even the briefest little glimpses into those dark corners, where the Vashta Narada fear to tread, you know what I'm saying is bad. If I'm saying don't go looking for it.
So
yeah, for Doctor Who reference.
Woohoo!
So yeah, Killerfish has still kind of got to work out what he's going to do with the yes and the no's, but he's working out the filtering system for that. What will that filtering system
will currently be called Squato.
I am the gatekeeper. Are you the key?
Disturbing thing to ask me.
No. Well, how was that quote from Ghostbusters now? Yeah, I've got
I am the gatekeeper. Are you the keymaster?
That's it. Thank you.
Disturbing thing to ask, really.
Okay, so...
Are you the keymaster? No, but you can trust my key, baby. Yeah.
She got a bit doggy.
Squato.
Yes.
How have you been since we last heard from you on the podcast?
Unemployed.
I know you can't really talk about the circumstances therein, but how long has that been the case?
Only for about just around 2 months. The company I was working for, that's when I was let go. There is a bit of a thing about it, so I can't exactly go into details. I will later point when I can. But yeah, basically I was let go from the company, and I won't go into details about that, but I can tell you who the company was, and I will tell it because if you ever hear the company, if you ever have the opportunity to work with them or anything like that, or if you ever have the business and your business has the opportunity to do business with them, don't.
Run the other way.
Yeah, run away. Run away. Run as far and fast as you can. Company's name? Serco. They primarily work with basically government contracts, for instance, with defence and things like that. They are in Australia. They do a lot of other things. For one, they look after the detention centres in Australia. I'll put it to you this way. Since they've taken over, the main detention centre in Australia has had basically strikes from the people inside the detention centre, which is people that are on for are trying to get asylum into Australia. These people have been on food hunger strikes, there's been riots, and there's been things like that basically happening weekly. And the main reason why they're doing it is because they don't like the people looking after it. Serco is looking after that.
Ah.
They're not a good company.
It sounds like, yeah.
They're the most management top-heavy place I've ever been with. They bad, and they basically don't care. In fact, they actually know they've done a couple of illegal activities and things like that, which have only been allowed because the fact that no one was either aware of it or the fact that no one in the government said anything about it because, hey, they don't do it and this is the company doing their management style.
Right. So
Right.
your suggestion to them is, if they offer you a job, don't take it, run, don't blink and you're dead. Don't turn your back, don't look away, and don't blink. Good luck.
Pretty much. So yeah, and it's funny is I heard some people when I was saying about how they're not that great. Like, these is actual libertarians that say like, oh, you're not allowed to have any government control, things like that, and or they feel that you should have things like, say, public services like the fire department and the police should be run by private enterprise. My counterpoint to that is just simply point you towards Serco. Go, this is what happens when they run it.
Well, as this is not a political show, I won't debate that, and especially as I'm not a libertarian, I won't debate that. But yeah, there's a counterpoint to that. In any case,
Yeah, as long as it's not Serco.
yeah. I myself am no longer employed at Apple, which means I can talk about computers on the podcast now. I can talk about technology. I can talk about other companies. Yay!
Yay! And he can't do the quickening anymore. Yay!
Don't ask what that's about. So yes, what? Da.
What she said.
Yeah, exactly. I won't go into the details as to the reason for my leaving, just because there's a lot to it, but the departure was not hostile. I was not fired, and I am looking forward to starting a new job, hopefully at the end of the month, if not shortly thereafter. In any case, going forward, this new job is going to be at a firearms training center, which is awesome. It's the advanced firearms training classes, the one that teach you how to do the awesome stuff with guns, and be safe and professional about it.
So, at some point in the future, we're going to see you jumping through a door like Jet Li, both handguns firing at a target as you strafe through the room. Something like that?
I don't know if they teach dual wielding yet, but they definitely teach shooting from a helicopter.
I love your thing, which is if you're if you're in a helicopter with someone, they're doing it, and you're going, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, so hopefully soon.
I will say a side point on that because I know some people have got the wrong impression when I have said with that, because I know that me being someone that's... I thought I just got an email from you, Homer, where it was someone that had a similar name apparently in a similar email. Sorry. With my views on gun control, things like that. My main thing is not so much gun control, but making sure people that are actually going to use guns, and if you want to actually own guns, you know how to use them safely. So, good job with getting onto that, Homer.
Yes.
Just a clarification point, because someone did say something recently, I remembered.
Okay, so in any case,
pause.
I'm just thinking. Well, okay. So what are we going to be doing in the future? Now, I'm not talking future projects here, but let's talk about the podcast. As I mentioned during the first recording, there's going to be a new show coming up here shortly. In fact, we're going to be doing our first recording today. This one's going to be featuring myself and my mom. My mom is... her name is Sue McFarland, and she is a history major. I can't remember the school she went to, but she is a liberal Democrat who has quite the opposite viewpoint on American politics from myself. I am the Tea Party conservative. I claim no title, but I have a lot of modern-day experience and we are going to recount and discuss the political news of the day. And of course, naturally, one of the topics we're going to be talking about is Osama bin Laden and whether or not his death will impact the American presidency at all.
Well, I'm just sort of wondering if this is going to be like that talk show from Grand Theft Auto where it was the right and left together and they were the married couple, but mother and son type thing.
Have no idea. I don't play a Grand Theft Auto series, so. In any case,
I'll send it to you. The sound file.
Alrighty, Killerfish. In going forward, what are you expecting with the podcast?
I'm expecting me to actually be more around to do various different shows, if you understand.
So more circular.
Yes. No. I mean, I'm expecting to be on the podcast more often, and also appear as guest speaker on various other shows if and when I'm needed. So I'm just making myself available to the whole Bunnycast network.
Awesome.
To talk to. For of course, I've got my doctorate in randomness. I'm a doctor of random now, so I can do anything.
I have no idea what she's saying. She's saying something like homie.
Excuse me.
So Squato, podcast going forward, what would you like to see happening?
This, that, the other.
Lovely.
Going forward, but back. Or however that Julie Gillard remix. Well, I'm, as you know, looking for jobs, things like that, which is a given. Damn my crippling addiction to money.
She's saying pony. I just figured it out.
It sounded like she was saying homie at first to me.
Yeah, but she likes watching the My Little Pony series. And speaking of, it's time for reviews. Okay, so let's actually, Squato, let's start out with you.
Oh, with my review?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just finish. Oh, that's where I put the book. Okay, the ones I'm reviewing is actually more of a book series. It's actually 2, but there's a 3rd one coming out soonish, maybe next year or so. Just depends on how fast the guy writes them. But I will need to do a slight explanation for it because the topic of the books, I know it's going to be somewhat controversial for some people, particularly with the fact that I, quote, have a reputation. Basically, the author of these is John Birmingham. John Birmingham is basically he's like Yahtzee. He's a guy that was born in England that lives in Australia and has an English accent.
Right.
He first wrote a story a couple of years ago, about in the early 90s, called He Died with a Falafel in His Hand, which was basically about shared living accommodation and the pitfalls and fun that can be had from that. For those people that have lived in shared accommodation, they reckon it's very true to life. Yeah, that was made into a movie a while ago. Now, that was his thing, but he also worked in other areas. He's worked as a reporter for about 2 days before he realised he doesn't care for reporting. He also works for a an independent government think tank, which is basically looking into future technologies and stuff like that. And one of his other side interests was writing history stories. The first of which was a book called Leviathan, which is a 1,000-page book. Sorry, not 1,000. 1,200-page book about the city of Sydney. If you want to know how in-depth, the fact that it's called Leviathan is your big hint. Now, why is that all the details? Because that's the type of work he used to do. When he was writing Leviathan, he read a story by Matthew Riley. Matthew Riley is an Australian author that basically writes... Think Michael Bay if he was a book, if he was an author.
Right.
So
So all of his books will be exploding and not make much sense.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
go on.
So because he read that, he got really excited into it, and he got into wanting to do a type of high octane adventure type of story. The first one he wrote was a trilogy called The Axis in Time. The basic premise of that is that it's set in the year 2021. Jihad has been able to top the Indonesian government, which has now got an Islamic Council, is now running there, and so they have an international multi-task force has been sent in to deal with it. Unfortunately, because it was so fast, they had an experimental vessel which was a part of which was also brought in. Now, why is that important? They were experimenting with wormhole technology. They do the experiment, and the the entire fleet disappears, only to reappear in 1942 in front of the United States. I forgot what the fleet name, steaming towards Midway. Basically, the whole story follows on from that, which is you have the impact of that type of 21st or early mid 21st century technology in a World War II setting.
Right.
Trust me, well worth it. There's actually people trying to get that turned into a movie.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I actually tried to see if I could get an RPG based on it. Well, sorry, on Mayhem, but people didn't seem to like the setting. Idiots. Anyway, so that's his sort of thing. He learned off that a lot of things about how to not do those type of stories, particularly how to pace them, stuff like that. That's why you come to the next series, which is called the Without Warning series. And that's what the first story is called. The second story, and this is where you get the bit of the why I had to give that sort of background detail, it's called After America. Now, the premise of it is rather simple. What would happen in a world where the United States, basically one of the preeminent economy, well, this was the setting is in 2003, so yeah, the largest economy in the world, the largest buying power, the largest in every sense of the word. What would happen to the world if that suddenly disappeared in the blink of an eye?
So, wait, it's there and then it's not?
Yeah.
Huh. Go on.
Well, the actual bit more into it is that the event itself that happens is something happens, and it's no one actually knows what it is, but it's the area where it hits. It's everything that's behind it is behind what's known as the wave, and the wave is this giant wall of energy which stretches about 100 k's into the sky, goes down to the surface, actually goes under the water, so no one knows how deep into the ground it works. And basically anything that's behind it or gets caught in it basically turns into a nice smoking pile of goo.
I see.
Well, that's living matter. Plant matter survives.
Interesting.
Things like that. So when this happened, it basically caused a huge area, and the impact of it basically, I've got the map here, stretches from Cuba to just outside Guantanamo Bay. Everything on that side of just about 100 k's outside Guantanamo Bay is safe, but the other side of Cuba disappears. Basically, Mexico, right near the border of the Pacific Ocean, like where the Yucatan Peninsula is, down from that disappears. Pretty much all of Canada is gone, and the only part of the United States besides Alaska and Hawaii is Portland, Oregon, and the areas just around Seattle.
So almost like the scenario we did for the War Thread.
Very similar in that sense. Yeah, so about, 320 million people would have just suddenly... No, how many... Call it 450 million people suddenly in one instant died. And it happened the days before the Iraq invasion.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have pressed that button. Whoops.
So the first story, the breakup generally was, well, the first one is you have the day of the incident, then the next day, a week later, and a month later, and it basically showed in the first story the initial impact and basically what happened afterwards. For one, basically there was a civil war broke out in France because they had there was a Muslim uprising. Now people going, that means that France is stuck. Well, everyone else in the Northern Hemisphere is also pretty much caught, because suddenly with the fact that there's no one controlling anything in America, and I mean Canada as well, there's all these toxic chemical plants spilling all their loads, nuclear power stations going into meltdown, and all these other little issues. Well, two really, but there's all these little issues going on. So suddenly, there's a crap load of deadly chemicals that have just been released into the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
England's the first place to get it.
Damn it.
Australia ultimately does, but apparently Australia is apparently one of the better spots that gets away with it, but that's because we're in the southern hemisphere on the opposite side of the planet.
Yes. That's the reason why. It's not because the author doesn't like the English.
Actually, he likes England. He likes America, but this is the whole...
me.
But no, the general premise is basically America has disappeared and what's happening to the world afterwards. And it goes on from that. And it even goes into detail about them trying to come up with a new constitution, or should they come up with a new constitution for the survivors, and what it should look like. Where is the power, particularly because for the most part, the biggest group of survivors is military personnel, thanks to the fact, as I said, it was just before the invasion of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
So it does go into those type of details. It really explains how this all sort of works. And then they're going on with the rebuilding, and it actually comes up with the new president. Oh yeah, and Palin does show up in the second one. That's because she's in Alaska. He actually did his research. He checked what days that she was in. She wouldn't have been in Alaska. She was on the day the event took place, so that's why she was safe.
Interesting.
So things like that. The second story is, well, the end of the first book, I will give this part out, is it only ends with a bit of a tease, which is the new president is in, he's happy with how life's going, and then all of a sudden people tell him he has to evacuate. Why? The wall, which has been separating America from the rest of the world, suddenly disappears. So now, North America is suddenly allowed to, people can go back to it. And the second story follows on what happens 2 years later as they're trying to do the rebuilding and the rebuilding of America, people going back into it, America being able to re-establish itself in the wake of the fact that they're suddenly gone from about, was it 300 million to 14 million?
Uh-huh.
And the fact that not only did they have that problem, but there's also everyone else that's got the problems going on. Hey, as I said, the toxic wasteland, which has basically just gone dumped into the sky, falling onto the rest of the planet.
Right.
Things like that. It's a great story, great characters, really interesting, really entertaining, and yeah, this is one that, trust me, it's a page turner. It's one of those ones which it's definitely an airport book, and by that I mean it's one that you catch if you're going to go on a longer flight, and you're definitely going to be reading it because it's exciting.
So what was the name of the author again?
John Birmingham. First, with this one, the series, first one is Without Warning, and the second one is After America. The third one is, and apparently it will only be a trilogy, which is a shame, but it's always good to see when they have a great universe and they decide to know when to kill it and not,
Right.
keep it going. Oh, Star Wars.
Was that a subtle hint there?
Okay, Killerfish, you had a book, correct?
Yes, I have a book. To do a bit of explanation, I just got to say straight off, I hate first-person stories. You have to understand this. I absolutely hate it when authors write their stories as if they're the person telling the story. It just gets on my goat for some reason. However, I have an
Got any
exception.
specific examples on that point? Sorry, just to ask some.
No, I can't provide you any examples at the point because whenever I see something like that, I instantly put the book down. However, I have an exception to this rule, And that one exception is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but it's...
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. It's the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles, which I'm not sure how many he's going to write, because he's only just released the second book. He released the second book on March the 1st. But I'm not going to talk about that now because I haven't read it. I'm going to talk to you about the first book. Now, what it is, it's a story about a man named Kvothe. Kvothe. It's hard to pronounce. It makes my throat sore every time I do. But it's a pretty unique name. You're not going to forget it. Now,
Sounds like a Klingon.
he's not. Let's put it this way. So, who Kvothe is? Well, I'm just going to read the back of the book so you can get an idea of what the story's about. I find that's the best way to explain things to people. I have stolen princesses back from sleeping barrow kings. I burnt down the town of Trebon. I have spent the night with Heldren and left with both my sanity and my life. I was expelled from the university at a younger age than most people are allowed in. I tread paths by moonlight that others fear to speak during day. I have talked to gods, loved women, and written songs that make minstrels weep. My name is Kvothe. You may have heard of me.
And my next task, babysitting a small group of people who are a small group of kids who are really the children of my country's ruling houses.
Which is on an island with pigs. Actually, I will make a side note on this for those people interested. Yes, we're both talking about those weird paper-shaped things.
Right. Anyway, back to me discussing this book. Basically, it starts off with the main character, who is, at this point in his life, running a tavern. As you do when you're a retired adventurer. As all of retired adventurers. Yeah. Anyway, he's pretty much down on life. He's not really living life at the point where the story starts. And from when the story starts, it starts off in the third person. And what happens is, he gets tracked down by a chronicler who wants to write his story. And after a bit of persuading, he agrees to tell his story, at which point the story switches to first person, which is why I don't mind it so much. And from then on, it goes on to explain all the hardships he's had in life, like his parents being killed, and when his parents were travelling minstrels with a troupe, and his parents and the entire troupe were killed, and he was left alone in a forest by himself. Hence why I was left alone, and
as
you do, and had to overcome so much just to get to the next point in his life where he would learn magic, basically.
Insert 300 joke here.
Yes. As you can probably tell, it's a fantasy story. I highly recommend it. It's got its poignant moments, it's got its funny moments, and the character does... You can see the character start to build himself up a reputation as this sort of super being who goes around fighting various evils and doing all these legendary tasks. But you see it from his point of view, as if I didn't intend to become this legend. This is how I became this legend, and this is why all those little stories started up.
One question, is it actually him doing... I know it's the guy writing the story, but does it feel like it's him sort of telling the story, or does it feel like there is, as you said, when he built himself up, it's the guy telling his story, but with a slight embellishment from the bard?
It comes across as if it's a guy talking about his past, but he does say that he's embellished it a bit.
So you're not too sure, in a sense, who did the actual embellishment?
It says he does say that he I believe that he says some point through it that he's not telling you facts precisely how they happen to preserve the identity of people he's talked to, or so on and so forth. But there is an undercurrent that maybe he's selling himself a bit, just a bit. But
so it can still kind of be either one that's actually doing the level of embellishment, either the guy adding it himself, or it's in a sense what the bard himself has written down as actually sort of added on to the embellishment.
No, it's all Kvoth. It's all him.
Okay.
It's not the chronicler embellishing it. It's all Kvoth saying it straight out. It's a good book. I highly recommend it for people to go and read if they haven't already, and if they have read it already and they have not yet currently read The Wise Man's Fear, which is the next book, I suggest that they go out and look for that book as well. Anyway, that's my review over and done with. On to the next one.
Okay. Thank you, Killerfish. Now, I do have one question real quick about that one.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like Space Marines and fantasy setting?
It's a pure fantasy. It's no science fiction to it.
No, I get that, but like the Space Marine genre is almost its own distinct subgenre off of sci-fi, because of course naturally you have to have the sci-fi elements for there to be space marines.
It's a subgenre of a subgenre, which subgenre is sci-fi military.
True, but the Space Marine subgenre is, I'm a hardcore badass. I was raised to be a badass from when I was 2.5 years old. I lost all of my family. I was able to eat a whole cow with my bare hands.
It's not.
How
like
the
that
hell
at all.
could he eat a cow with his bare hands? You require a mouth for that.
It's more like I was raised as somebody who could sing and dance.
So basically, he's the character from the not the Life of Brian, the one with King Arthur. I know I've said Monty Python before, but I forgot it. But the one that did the song about Sir Robin, but actually can really fight.
Sort of. It's like he's gone around the entire country with his parents, and his parents have started developing this song about old legends, and they were killed for it.
So we're not talking like
so they got
Master
the early
Chief in a
copyright
fantasy
then.
setting.
Sorry, Homer, I didn't hear.
We're not talking Master Chief in a fantasy setting then.
No.
Okay, good.
We're talking average man who's gone and purely his own drive to succeed is what's
Okay, that sounds interesting. Because
Because his family was killed by the early copyright enforcers.
You can only read so many versions of Master Chief before you start saying, I've read this story before. Okay, so now for my review.
And Master Chief, he was copying from this certain story from this certain author, and this is the style.
Thank you, Nerd Squato.
Alright, now for my review. And I am actually going to be reviewing My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. I was first exposed to this. I didn't even know the series existed until it was mentioned by Dan Shive on his Twitter feed. And naturally, I said, well, not only is this something that has expressed interest by a person whose story writing and art style and all that kind of good stuff I actually do respect a lot, but I also am always on the lookout for good shows that my daughter might want to watch and be entertained by. So let's take a look. Within literally the first episode, I was hooked. Just entirely. Because the writing is... I mean, you hear it's written for kids, but it's also written for adults. Now, this was written for adults. It just happens to be able to be watched by kids.
Yeah, that
too.
is definitely one of its. The particular first episode is a really great example of that, because people look at that and they go, you know what? The enemy, I can agree with their points. If you ever say that about anything, you know you have a good story. If you ever think with the villain, you know what? They're right. That's a good story. That's a good villain.
And there's a lot of they're called bronies, kind of like our community's called bunnies. The My Little Pony fans who are males between the ages of 15 and I want to say 30 call themselves bronies. Don't ask me why they specified that range. In any case,
I think it came from 4chan, because it was that's the really big part of where the internet came with My Little Pony's fan base. It was 4chan itself.
And amusingly enough, 4chan, if you mention 4chan or if you mention ponies on 4chan, you're banned.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a banned word. The reason for that is because they had My Little Pony actually crippled the servers of the site, because there was just that much stuff coming out on about My Little Pony, and exclusively My Little Pony, that it shut down everything. So because of that, they just went, you say the word, it's banned.
Yeah. In any case, as far as the series itself, there are a few times when you're watching, you're all, nah, it's not up to their usual style. But that says two things right there. First off, that their usual style is so good that when it doesn't meet that, you're surprised. There's only 3 episodes that I can think of off the top of my head where I've been a little bit shocked that they took it the direction they did, because it just didn't feel as good as they have previously been able to do.
Is Flutter Guy involved in that?
I'm sorry?
Is Flutter Guy one of those?
Oh, that was funny as hell.
Guy.
That was funny as hell. She's an evil enchantress. She does evil dances. If you look into her eyes, then she'll put you in trances.
I loved how deep the guy's voice it was. It was the type of voice they got for the quietest character was the type of voice you get from a 70s porn star.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you want gargoyles. Goliath.
Right.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones stars in My Little Pony. But
your faith in the friendship is much disturbing.
Actually, there is My Little Pony Star Wars mashups. Don't worry, there's a mashup of My Little Pony with everything online nowadays.
Yeah, there is. My current
I was
favorite.
only joking.
My current favorite is the mashup where they took video clips from My Little Pony throughout the series and put them all together just right to the audio track for the trailer for Hot Fuzz. And it's called Trot Fuzz. That's funny.
Well, I could have. Oh no, I bet they've already done. I was going to say if there's a Quentin Tarantino film, if they've already got a mashup of that, but you know what? There likely is.
It's like the brand new Rule 35 of the internet. There's a My Little Pony mashup of it somewhere.
But there is a bit more details behind it, because the person that did this, she did a couple other animations before. I think Phyllis and Ferb, was it? Or something like that. She's actually got she was involved with Kim Possible. So the woman has a good reputation.
Yeah, there's good writing and art pedigree behind this show, which is a big reason it's successful.
And it really does display, and that's so when they were given the offer of, do you want to do this show, they weren't, oh, should we or shouldn't we? But then they decided, you know what, this actually is an important thing for a lot of people's childhood. It's something that's sort of fallen by the wayside. We should help bring it back, and that's why she sort of did it. And she said that as a result, it's interesting for her for multiple reasons, although there is some where there is kind of there can be problems, and one is this, where the tone. they actually do want to take the story into darker territory, but they can't, because the studio who makes, well, basically the people that own the product, they don't want it to go into darker territory because they don't want to, the nicest way to put it, they don't want to cause problems for their aim group. And the show is actually outright aimed at, 3 to 5 year old girls?
That's what they think.
Yeah, that's what they said. So they don't. It is actually aimed there, so that's why they don't want it to go too dark or anything like that, because it could get people offended. Now, there is a big fan base otherwise, and the reason for that is because they said, well, we do want to aim it at that or we will have it written and aimed at that age group, but the thing is, the problem with things that are actually at that age group is they're too dumbed down and too stupid, and they don't actually teach kids, they don't talk to children, which is when you get those ones that do it. And a great example of a show which actually treated children not so much as babies, but actually treated them as someone that can understand more mature ideas, and get to explore things like that. It's one I haven't seen too often. Best example would be Mysterious Cities of Gold. Track that one down, honestly. It's one from the early 80s, and they apparently are remaking that one.
Did you say Cities of Gold?
Mysterious Cities of Gold.
Huh. Never heard of it.
Basic premise of Mysterious Cities of Gold is it's in the 16th century. They've got the three main kid characters. One of them is the survivor of a lost race that doesn't exist anywhere. One of them is this kid that was found in the Pacific Ocean by a previous Spanish expedition. He has a mysterious Mayan sun symbol on his as a medallion that he was given and will always wear. And the other person is a kidnapped Incan princess.
Ah.
And they have to go into... Basically, they go into South America looking for El Dorado. And yes, they do actually point out how bad the conquistadors were in there. And the really smart part, after the episodes, they had a little documentary going, okay, this is what you saw in the show. Here is the real history.
Cool. Yeah, see, and that's my thing. Before this era of all children must be coddled until a certain age, there was no such thing as the kids' book. I mean, there may have been books kind of that would appeal more towards children than adults, and some authors would use that, but it's like the cartoon.
There's always existed sort of a dumbed down version. A great example of that is one that my mother actually has, is Gulliver's Travels. She actually has a comic, it's one from the 1920s, I believe, that we've still got. And it's basically a dumbed-down version of Gulliver's Travels. Oh, and by dumbed down, I mean they take out the reference, the points that say how bad the British government was.
Yes, because we cannot say how bad the British government was. Ever.
Stop laughing.
It's not funny. Anyways,
Thank you, BBC.
So, getting back to My Little Pony, the big thing that actually keeps the show interesting, beyond just the fact that it's well written and has good characters, is, frankly, the fan community. There's a couple websites...
Which frightens me in many, many ways.
I'm going to highlight a couple of websites just because they're a major part of it. First off, there's PonyChan, which I've not actually been to, but when 4chan kicked all the Pony and Bronies off of their servers, they all formed their own image boards called PonyChan. So if you want the original 4chan Pony experience, then that's where you would go.
Actually, you want a good example of PonyChan working, and when it was 4chan? The character Derpy.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's another fan favorite. Has had all of 2 on-screen words, but is massively famous because, and this is an absolute fact, during the party scene in the first episode, one of the animators goofed, and one eye was skewonkus to the other. And instantly, all these fans are all, oh, it's a new pony design. It's this wall-eyed pony. Let's name her Derpy Hooves. And
yeah, they've actually gone through, and there's fan names for pretty much all the major characters, and the people behind it said we kind of only came up with 5 standard designs and was done slight deviations from there. So that's where they sort of said they're probably going to see on average maybe 50 or so differences, because that's all they had really planned for. But there's thousands of fan names for the characters and different ones.
Oh yeah, I
even
think
ones that you just see them for maybe a millisecond in a huge crowd scene, because they're just slight enough difference. They've got the details of it. And it's like, oh, here's a whole full history of it and all this type of stuff.
I think my personal favorite is
same with the Derpy. When she recently, she sold some of the original design sketches for the characters. Is it Twilight? Yeah, Twilight, the main character. Her initial image went for over 5.5. This was all done for charity for Japan. The initial image itself went for over 5,500. The same for is it Applejack? Yeah, Applejack. For over 5,000 and 3,000 for the Hyper one, and Derpy. A design sketch for her went for about 2,000 and 2,500.
And she wasn't even going to be part of the show, other than, well, we need a pony here. Let's put this gray one with a blonde mane and tail. What should be on her flank? Bubbles. Let's do that. And then somebody didn't pay attention, and one of the eyes was pointed the wrong way, and that was it.
And because of that, it's just been so big, and that's why that, as I quoted with those with the auction, that's really just how big it was. People were like, "Oh, are you going to do it?" The first question was asked, "Is Derpy going to be on it?" It was the very first one for auction. It made the least, but it was the one that they asked the first about.
My personal favorite fan-named pony. There's a pony that wanders through town with a brown coat and a darker brown mane and tail, with an hourglass on its flank. And this has been dubbed by the fans to be Dr. Hooves.
Yeah, there is actually people that have come up. That's where the fan craziness on that. Actually, I love the fact that they had the DJ one. They've actually, before they gave it a real name for it, people were sort of trying to come up with Daft Punk like name for it.
Yeah, my favorite is the stage name is PWN-3, as in pony, but in lead speak, and the real life name for that one is Vinyl Scratch. So yes, My Little Pony is. Do not be turned away by the fact that the 80s version of the show and the 80s version of the toys was this abominable piece of crap that was designed specifically just to make money.
Same as Transformers.
Well, yeah, but Transformers actually did something. The ponies, they literally just sat there. You couldn't even turn their heads in the original design. You had to actually take and do a knife around that little seam just to make it so that you could actually turn the damn heads.
Yes.
And they had weird sort of freaky faces and eyes.
Yes.
It's like that one from The Simpsons, I shouldn't even be alive.
And then there's that one Family Guy episode. Anybody who watches this video dies, and it shows this scene that looks like it's from the 80s version of the series, and the next scene, Peter Griffin's on the floor dead, tongue lolling out.
Yeah, and the mouth is wide open as large as his head.
So, as I was saying, do not be turned away by the 80s series. Ignore the 80s series. Forget the 80s series. This has as much to do with the 80s series of My Little Pony as... let's see.
Actually, they do have references to the original 80s series in there, and it's well, apparently some of the fans have picked it up. There is very slight references in there to sort of canon. It's in a sense it's a follow-up to the original series. There's sort of small canon details that come up, like history they talk about.
Well, honestly, I kind of view it as it has as much to do with the original 80s series as the current Battlestar Galactica has to do with the 70s Battlestar Galactica.
Or Stargate Universe to Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, 6 and 1, half dozen of the other. I think our point is made.
Yeah.
Watch it as though you had never heard the name My Little Pony before, and as though none of the 80s blight of attempted cuteness and corporately fostered trending, just pretend that never existed. Come to it as
Sorry, guys. I can't get that mental image of the parody they did on Dexter's Laboratory where they had that Mr. T type character beating up the ponies.
Don't worry, Mr. T's pony will appear soon enough.
I pity the fool.
The ponies on...
No, I pity the hooves.
The ponies on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Sure, they're girls. Sure, you can understand why their target demographic is a bunch of little girls. You can understand how some of these storylines, if you were to take, say, the story about the sleepover and try to apply it to human characters, it would not work. But these are ponies that can kick ass and take names, and still have a tea party afterwards.
Actually, I just remembered with a bit of the points about with the fan base, and this was a magazine that was aimed at feminism and things like that. They sort of, I forgot what it was actually called, and one of the writers on there took offence. This was early on with My Little Pony. They took offence to the new series because they said it was sexist, racist, and all this other type of thing. So they actually went off with this whole thing. The fan base basically were up in arms. The person that was smart enough to basically both cool down the fan base and was also to counterpoint everything that was discussed there was the person that actually is responsible for the show. And I've got to get her name.
Lauren Faust.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, she basically came out. She both dissected why this person was coming up with these points, where they were wrong, well, and her personal views as to why they're wrong, and she also explained a lot of the reasons behind it. So she really is got a very good ideas behind what she's doing with it. But if you want to get into it, yeah, first episode. That's basically going to be the one to tell you if you're going to be interested in it or not.
Yeah. Okay, so again, I personally really like the series. The season 1 just ended. It can be found on iTunes, naturally. However, I really greatly, my respect for Hasbro as a company has really rocketed up because of this. From day one, people have been posting the episodes to YouTube, and at any time, Hasbro could have fired their lawyers.
Actually, the one that's been uploading them has actually been the creator of it. She's got her own YouTube account. She's been uploading them herself.
Ah, that's something I didn't know. Well, the fans...
That came a point because suddenly they all disappeared and people were like, oh no, the lawyers have been shutting it down. Then they realised, wait, no, these other ones have not been pulled out. Turns out the reason why it was pulled is it's because she had previously worked on the... there's a shortcake. Strawberry shortcake.
Uh-huh.
She did the new version of Strawberry Shortcake. She hated working on that. She hated the company's mindset and all this. And she decided that since it was her project that she'd worked on, yes, she didn't own the characters, but because she'd worked on it, she wanted to show people what she'd done. She uploaded some footage onto it. The lawyers shut her down because she was stealing footage that was not of her own.
Even though
she'd actually drew it herself. In the end, it was all back down. Don't you just love that company?
Well, okay, the point is that Hasbro has been leaving all of the, quote, pirated versions of the uploads up on YouTube. So if you want to watch My Little Pony, the entire series, start to finish, all you have to do is do a search for My Little Pony Friendship is Magic on YouTube, and there's several stations to pay attention to. I follow Menlo Marseille, Pensive Pony, My Little Pony 1080p. There's a bunch. And when you start looking into that, then you also start discovering things like Trot Fuzz and Ponycraft 2 and all these other trailer mashups, and then you see them find the music videos, and then they find the Eurobeat tracks, and it's a great fandom, a great community, a company that's actually responding in a 21st century way to fans posting about the product. It's worth it. Get into it. But seriously.
Oh, Weird Al's a big fan of it too.
Oh, yes. And Lauren Faust has publicly on her Twitter feed asked Weird Al to participate in My Little Pony in some way.
And he's already been in Transformers, so he knows the company.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
No,
Mr.
really.
Optimus Prime, sir. I'll keep you away from the ponies.
No, really, with that one, the Transformers, is because they had in the original 80s series, they had one of these races of robots that were on this dump heap planet, the Junkers and that type of thing. Their motto and the thing that they used when they went into battle was "Dare to be stupid." So when they did the new version of it, they actually got Weird Al to voice the leader of that group.
Wait, you mean Rekar?
Yes.
Yeah.
From the Transformers animated series?
Yeah.
The new one?
Yeah.
He was Weird Al?
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, he was played by Eric Idle.
Yeah. Weird Al.
Hey, what do you know?
Okay, we've gone on this segment for an hour and 5 minutes, which is actually longer than I expected it to be.
Not enough ponies.
Woohoo!
Need more ponies. Winter wrap up.
That will actually be a comment. I trust you. Trust me on that. There will be a comment saying not enough ponies.
Needs more ponies. Needs more cowbell.
Put away our holiday cheer.
Actually, that has been the replacement. People have taken away cowbells with ponies now.
Okay. Just as a reminder, we are here thanks to the wonderful folks at Shastrix. Shastrix.com. They are a hosting site. And from what I understand, Jim, the operative man behind the curtain at Shastrix, is still accepting new submissions to the site for whatever you want to host. So take a gander there. You can get a hold of the Bunnycast by going to bunnycast@gmail.com or emailing us at bunnycast@gmail.com, I should say. And, of course, at shastrix.com/bunnycast. And, of course, we all participate in community.910cmx.com. Isn't that right, Killerfish?
I'm with you in spirit. Even if I'm a bit bogged down by things that I'm doing elsewhere.
That actually reminds me, Frank, I did forget to talk about with things that we're doing. Project that I'm working on, and it's with Killerfish. I'm doing the writing, he's doing the drawing, because apparently that's the deal. Could have been the other way around if you wanted. It's UTA, or
Yes.
Ultra Training Academy, which is or the other name we're going with, Copycat, which is basically she's a Catgirl character that as a superhero. That's the shortest version I'm going to give for it.
Killerfish, what project are you working on?
As well as the UTA project, I'm working on another project with an individual called Henry Patterson. And what we're working on is Red Vixens from Space.
Oh, God.
Yes. It's not as bad as it sounds.
How can it not?
Well,
Okay.
It's not.
Alrighty, enough about the anthro superheroes. Thanks to my now copious free time, I am going to be doing some live broadcasting this week, getting everything set up properly for the podcast to do live video recording and podcasting, etc. And
You've got to do one of them. Has got to be a Ventura Brothers reference of "Ignore me." How you announce it?
And I will, of course, be doing Bunnycast live at random times throughout the day. So be sure to pay attention to my Twitter feed at HomerNet on Twitter. And, of course, I've told people how to get a hold of me otherwise. Killerfish, how can people get a hold of you?
Primarily by dropping me a line on my DeviantArt account, or by kind of like talking to Squato, and he'll get in contact with me.
Particularly when you want to do
agent
comms.
for some reason. Yes, he's become my agent for some reason, and it's a bit weird, but you know, I'm a closet shut-in, so.
How's the agent in Bolt work? How did he speak? Let's put a pin in that. Boop. And we'll go back to that later.
Okay, and Squato, how can people get a hold of you?
By throwing bricks at my house.
Sounds good.
Mental telepathy.
Okay, egscomics.com.
As long as you don't do like scanners, I'm happy.
Twitter.com/DanTheShive. And that will wrap it up for this episode of the Bunnycast. Say goodbye.
Good morning.
Fair enough.
The sun's actually dawning, so.
And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Thank you. The name escapes me.
Truman Show.
Truman. Thank you, Truman.
In a world we can't defy, there's more than meets the eye. The laws of right and wrong no longer apply. It's a crazy world, in a twisted turn of reality. It's you and me, and I need you here to keep some sanity. We are but pawns in a faded game of cat and mouse. Maybe a couple of squirrels thrown out here and there. It's a crazy world, it's twisted all up in my hair. I got you, I don't care. Sometimes I feel like I'm controlled like a hero in a comic book, baby. Chasing one day after the next. No settle down, no easy text, baby. But it makes me feel alive when you're here by my side. You complete the two of us, you make the rules apply. It's a crazy world, in a twisted turn of reality. It's you and me, and I need you here to keep some sanity. We are but pawns in a faded game of cat and mouse. Maybe a couple of headshots thrown out here and there. It's a crazy world, it's all messed up, all in my hair. I got you, I don't care. But now all that I want is just to be your man. It's a crazy world, in a twisted turn of reality. It's you and me, and I need you here to keep some sanity. We are but pawns in a faded game of cat and mouse. Maybe a couple of guinea pigs thrown out here and there. It's a crazy world, it's all messed up in my hair. I got you, I don't care.